Welcome to the Friendly Aussie
Hello.
podcast.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the Friendly Aussie podcast.
Yeah, welcome everybody, and we're here with the Global Hemp Movement at Global Hemp Movement. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. What's your name? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So hi, my name's Alexander Gorshenin. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Where's the last name from?
Gorshenin? Yeah, that's the Russian name.
Ah.
Yeah.
I do like
Da. Don't worry. I have no problem with Russians. It's okay with me.
That's good. I'm glad.
Yes. Us Slavs, we respect Russians because, well, Russian dominate us most of the time.
Motherland is there.
Yeah, motherland.
There has to be some kind of respect there.
Yeah, so my name's Alexander. I started the Global Hemp Movement back in 2006, beginning of 2016. It's an interesting...
4 years, 4.5.
Yeah, about 4 years actually. Yeah, it's
That's cool.
It's gone quick actually. It's really gone quick. And I suppose it started really out of... I went to a seminar down at Byron Bay for the Freedom Summit. And there was a lady at the front of the seminar with this table of all these different hemp products. And I mean, I knew about hemp, like I'd had a lot of cannabis throughout my life, and I knew that you could make rope out of hemp, and I knew you could make clothes out of hemp, you know, the sort of stuff that Bob Marley would wear. But when I saw this table with all these different things on it, like seeds and oil and protein and hempcrete and plastics and all these things, I was like, this all comes from the same plant. Like, how does that work? Like, really?
Yeah.
And she gave me some seeds to try, and I picked up the hempcrete brick, and I was like, this is amazing. So I went home and did a lot of Google research. And at the time, I just had a knee reconstructive surgery, so I had a lot of time on the couch. So I was there with my remote and watching a lot of YouTube and filling my brain with all these different things that hemp could do. And then I finally went and bit the bullet and went to the health food store and bought some hemp seeds, some hemp protein powder, and some hemp oil.
Did you get that in 2016?
You could go to the health food shop and you could get it, but it did have a big, at this time in history, it had a big sticker on the front of it that said not for human consumption.
Yeah.
So it was quite confusing. It's at a health food store, and yet you're not supposed to eat it, but you could make a nice face scrub with it. So that's what they put on the front there. There's a big sticker, and it was quite smart because they put a picture or a map of the world, and it highlighted Australia as the only country in the world where you couldn't consume it as food.
Nice.
But in the rest of the world, you're allowed to. It's like, so there's these poor Australians.
That's since changed.
So that really fueled, I bought it, tried it, and I started implementing it into my diet, and I was probably 6 weeks into using hemp, and something flipped in my brain. It was like I just had more energy, I had clarity of thought, I'd lost weight, I was feeling good, my knee was getting better, the doctor was even saying, you're progressing really well, what are you doing? Well, I said, really, I'm the only thing that's doing my rehab, but I'm eating hemp. And he said, you're doing what? I said, eating hemp. And he said, look, I don't want to know what you're doing, just keep doing whatever you're doing, it's obviously working. So this got my brain ticking, you know. Hemp is this amazing plant. We're not allowed to really buy it for food, but you can eat it for food. And at this stage, FSANZ, Food Standard Australia New Zealand, had already quantified it and qualified it as a very healthy, nutritious food. Years before that, it was John Howard in his infinite wisdom that decided that we don't want to let the Australian public eat this healthy food because it's confusing. We don't want to confuse that between pot. They might think
We're
it's
too
pot.
dumb here.
We're
It's
very
problem.
dumb people in Australia. So the rest of the world can eat hemp seeds, but we weren't quite smart enough to be able to distinguish between, you can eat this part of it, but this part might get you high.
It's weird because, I mean, it'd be incredibly fibrous, right? Hemp would be have all these...
Heavy fiber.
It's lots of fiber, lots of omega fats, omega 3, 6, and 9, which are all
And
very...
protein. Like, it's literally like a perfect
I
supplement
don't know why
for
the
everything.
state would stand in the way of people eating it. It's
It
weird.
blows my mind. And this was the reason why. John Howard came out and said, we don't want to confuse people. So whether that was the reason why or, there's some other agenda going on there. So
Who benefits from hemp as food being illegal?
who benefits from, I
who
mean, the
benefits?
industries that are still running. So your
Yeah.
wheat, your sugar, all those
Other
kind of...
health foods as
And
well,
that's
I
your
guess.
answer.
Yeah, exactly. So that maybe that was part of it, but that just blew my brain out. And I swear to God, I was in my house and I was eating the food. I was feeling great, and this was a real thing that you're not allowed to eat it. And I just thought something had to be done about it. So I actually rang up the company at the time. It was Hemp Foods Australia. I rang them up and
I've seen them.
yeah, you would have seen them. They were pretty much the only Australian brand here. So I rang them up and said, hey, look, I love your stuff. I love hemp. It's really great. I want to work for you guys. And they're like, no, we don't have any jobs for you. But what you can do is you can take our product and you can sell it at the markets.
Yeah,
I see.
So that's pretty much what I did. I bought some hemp seeds and some hemp oil with a little bit of money that I had at the time and took it to the markets and just started telling people, hey, did you know that you can eat this? And it was so funny too, because at the markets at that time, you know, people that didn't know about hemp thought it was cannabis, and I was selling. They were little, oh no, I don't want to get high.
Cops ever coming by?
No, I had cops walk past and sort of look at me, but they never really came up and did anything, but a lot of looks from people. So you'd have people walk past, and I'd have a big cannabis leaf or hemp leaf behind me, and they'd sort of walk past and they'd look, and then they'd do a double take and go, is that guy really just selling weed here in the middle of the market? You know, and they come on, can you do this? Or, you know,
Can you do me a fitty, bro?
yeah, the amount of times we've had that, it's just ridiculous. So that was the platform.
Make a meme.
Exactly. It was one of those, and it still is. I mean, we still have that. We still have people coming up and don't realize it's not as much as it was. So yeah, that was pretty much how I started. I just at the markets teaching people about hemp and what it can do. And hey, did you know it's really high in omega fats? Those things are really important. Your brain's made out of fat. Your skin cells, your joints, they need omega fats, and this stuff grows here in Australia really quickly. Like within 120 days, you can have a plant. It grows pretty much in every continent around the world.
Super important too, because we have such heavy omega-6 diets in this country.
We do. And that was I think what I had a pretty good diet, and it was only until I started eating the hemp seeds, and I'm pretty sure in my mind it was the omega fats that actually really made the difference and gave me that clarity of mind, because I was already juicing and having green barleys and all that sort of stuff. Right. But yeah, the omega fats wasn't in my. I didn't really quite realize how important they are, even though it's in the name, essential fatty acids.
That makes sense.
The word essential, that would kind of give it away. That the reason why they call it essential fatty acid is because it's essential. You need to have them. You know, your body can't manufacture them, so you got to get them from either fish or some, eggs or avocados, things like that. You need to get them from somewhere, and hemp is a good place. So, and it's easy to grow. You can, So we've been telling people that for a long time, and the journey has gone for the last 4 years. So since then, we've kind of developed our own products. I have a big passion for hempcrete. That was kind of that was really where I've been wanting to go from the beginning, but it was kind of a hard place to go. Not many people were doing it, and really not anybody was really doing it.
Right.
I take that back. Clara from the Hemp Masonry Company, I don't know if you guys have spoken to her, but she's pioneered a lot of the hempcrete stuff here in Australia. They've done quite a few builds, and so she was running courses. I'm not sure if she's still running courses, so I did some courses with her, and then sort of took it from there. So
hempcrete absolutely is one of those things. Once you discover it, you're like, that's a real thing.
Yeah,
it's fire redundant. Like
fire resistant. It's fire resistant, mold resistant,
like eco-friendly, like everything you could ever imagine, like as a sustainable product. And yet it's not like massive, and you're like, what the fuck's going on?
That's what I mean. Like you only need about 2 acres of land to grow enough hemp to build yourself a house, like a 3-bedroom house. So 2 days, and that's in 100 days. So, and at that same time, what's actually happening is those plants are pulling carbon out of the air, sequestering it in the stalk. Then you take that and you lock it up into the walls of your house. So
that's a lot better than concrete, which is the whole process of creating cement.
Isn't it strange that there's so much that revolves around the cannabis plant that just like needs to be in our reality, and we would have such a better, healthier world?
Well, the fact that we're talking about it right now, like maybe if I ever built a house, I would just build it out of hempcrete, because I knew that it was a way better material and it could work.
And what's pricing? That's definitely something I'd have to.
So at the moment, it's pretty comparable, only because it's comparable in that, like a normal build, you're not using. With a normal build, you've got your bricks, your plaster, your stud. When you're doing a hempcrete, generally you don't have that brick wall, the veneer on the outside. You don't have the plaster on the inside. It's just a whole monolithic structure around the actual stud. So you save on that end, on that sort of labour and skills, but it is kind of quite labour intensive. You know, you've got a few people mixing, you've got a few people carrying it, you've got to tamp it down. I was always like, I'm looking at alternative building. I was a big fan of the whole earth ship. I don't know if you know earth ships where they get tires and they fill them with. dirt. I love that whole concept, and I did a lot of research in that. But they are even 3 to 4 times more labor intensive, and doesn't tick all the boxes as hempcrete does. So, as far as sequestering carbon,
could you synthesize those ideas that are kind of found in
the two together
into tires?
Oh well, I mean, I think people do that. I think people do have like walls with the tires, and then hempcrete around that. I've seen people do that. There was some builds that have been done in North Queensland where they've kind of integrated the two together.
Awesome.
Because from my understanding, earth ships don't work as well here in Australia just because of the climate. They're more
humidity or whatever.
Yeah, the humidity and things like that. Whereas hemp is actually really well suited for this because it's so breathable. I don't know if you guys have ever been into a hempcrete house, but it's a totally different feel. It feels amazing. You walk into one and it's like walking into a cave. But
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the not Alice Springs, the opal mine town.
Cooper Pedy. Yeah, it's a little bit like that. It really is because well, I mean, apparently it's the silica in the hemp and the lime, the calcium in the lime, there's a reaction that happens between those two, and it's actually going back to calcium carbonate, which is stone. So it's actually turning back into stone over time. It's pulling carbon out of the air and it locks it up. So it's actually over time, it takes up to 99 years or 100 years for it to completely cure.
So like my thinking, if it takes that long, does that mean it's effectively getting stronger and better as time goes?
One would think that, yeah. And in saying that, there are houses like there's a house in Japan that's been built over 300 years ago that is still standing. And you look at Japan, it's high seismic activity. There's volcanoes, all that sort of stuff. So it's still there. So
and it's made of hemp.
Made of hemp.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's pretty
hemp
cool.
is really integrated into Japanese culture, but they don't even know it.
No, they really don't.
They don't understand that, like a lot of that from just a friend that was there, and he was telling me because he's in the hemp space. They have heaps and heaps of clothes, but they don't regard that as cannabis. It's like
no,
yeah.
And I think that was the influence of the Americans back when Prohibition. The Americans basically said, we're outlawing it, and everybody else has to.
Yeah.
Because it's such a good plant, and you can do so much with it. We want to. I don't know exactly.
It probably comes back to the whole cotton thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of different arguments with it. The cotton, the paper. It was just Prohibition. The people that were doing Prohibition, they needed something, so they just outlawed that. They tried alcohol, and everybody rioted.
It's a good way to keep people in line.
Exactly.
And in some ways, it kept tensions up when they needed to be up in the Cold War. And now that you have the US kind of like, they've triumphed in that whole conflict, well, they get to set the international law. So we still have those laws that are stupid.
Exactly.
And I guess you can see it's weird because they're this country of freedom, but they have their own legacy of alcohol prohibition as well. So, a lot of this stuff has been imported from over there for various reasons, cultural panic and shock, racial tensions and shit.
I wouldn't believe that. No way.
Really? Is that really a thing?
Like, do you really think racism exists in America? You got to be kidding me. Like, nah.
I'm not sure about that.
Nah.
Never.
It's been an interesting fucking week or two, hasn't it? Like, what the fuck is going on?
I think we're just all of the stuff that has been,
Brewing.
systematically ignored for such a long time is finally coming to the surface, and we can't ignore it anymore.
No.
We
just need to process it and work out what to do with it.
Yeah.
And people are starting to reflect, and I think it's good.
It's going to be
it's really good.
Yeah.
How many years do you think it is before like the number one grown crop on the planet is hemp? Because it's going to happen, and unless we all like get killed.
What is it right now? Is it corn or wheat?
I think it'd be corn.
It's sugar, isn't it?
No, maybe.
Wheat. Well, actually, probably wheat. I'd say it's probably wheat.
I mean, corn is the thing.
Yeah, that's
People
corn,
often think that
glucose,
sugar.
Corn, glucose, yeah, they're all up there.
And
they're really up
ethanol
there.
too.
Yeah, well, part of our motto was, we were hoping that we would like to see hemp replace at least 50% of the wheat and sugar in Australia. I think that would have a flow-on effect as well, because if we could just take some of the sugar and some of the white flour out of our diets, we may have a different mental shift, a different perception of what's actually going on. And if you integrated some things like omega fats and some good proteins and some good minerals, you would feel different. And if you had a hempcrete house and you were living in a comfortable environment and you were wearing...
Had a garden, maybe.
Yeah, you had a garden and you had like comfortable clothes that were breathable and you were eating good, healthy food, maybe that would change the way you acted and the things that you did. So
That's like a shift in values almost.
completely. So if you went back to, let's say, 1937, before we took away the whole kind of like hemp and we put the taxes on, imagine where the world would be right now. You know, like, would we be in this predicament that we are right now? Exactly. So so it would be nice to be able to bring it back to where it should be. And it just, I still can't get over the fact that you can do so much with one plant. I mean, there's some great plants out there that do things like bamboo, and there's flax makes beautiful linen, and it's good for you as well. But hemp, it just ticks every single box. I mean, that's why I called it the global hemp movement, because at the time it felt like there really was a movement. And I think there's been movements throughout time, but they seem to sort of gather some momentum and then, I don't know,
dissipate a bit.
Dissipate, or whether there's a clandestine assault on us that tries to push us away or throw something else on top of us. But I think it's
getting a little too undeniable, I think.
What do you think will happen with New Zealand so soon? I mean, what happens if they legalize cannabis in general? Does that open up the potential for, that hemp space in Australia, that cannabis space in Australia to expand?
I would love to see that. We would love to see. I mean, every time you hear like a celebrity or a country taking it on board, you would hope that people go, oh, wow, they're doing it. Maybe we can do it as well. The 100th monkey, once the 100th monkey does it, then we all kind of do it. You would like to think that that's going to happen.
Well, yeah.
I suppose some of the concerns you have in the medical cannabis or cannabis, sort of the way it works, some of the medical cannabis is either a synthesized version of it, and then that comes out and people use it, and then they go, I tried that and it didn't work, and medical cannabis doesn't work. So that's a bit of a concern.
Not the whole spectrum stuff.
Once again, it's doing things like this and having people like yourselves and people that are educating and giving information like this so people can really take it on board. I think that will be the keystone. That will help bring it here.
I agree.
Definitely. So New Zealand, that's going to be a good thing for us.
If it happens.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I'm hopeful, but we've talked to Abe. He runs the Cannabis Museum in Christchurch. Really cool dude, but like he talked about, New Zealand has a very strong conservative population because non-conservatives have moved over here because there's no work there and everything's so expensive. So the question is, do the rich people of New Zealand want to get fucked up?
Yeah, and to be honest, like they're gonna
right way.
They're gonna need money, so it's a really they're shooting themselves in the foot because there's a massive industry that can be made
instantly,
huge amounts of money. It's already been proven in places like Colorado and Canada and the rest of it. So I mean,
it would be crazy not to.
They're also a step ahead of the US on so many other issues. Why not just like
one more?
Who's that?
Oh, New Zealand.
Oh yeah.
The thing about Jacinta Ardern after COVID and all the shootings and everything that's kind of happened in that space of time, the way that they've responded to everything, even when it comes to like I guess moving away from a commitment to carbon emissions into the future. Like they've basically ended oil and gas exploration.
They have.
And coal exploration all throughout the nation, which is, you just don't see that in Australia, right? Like it's not what we would do. And I think that the weird thing about New Zealand is that they kind of have a conception of what needs to be done into the future, and I hope that triumphs over the kind of conservative tendency, So that is my hope, but who knows? It'll be.
I hope for that too.
Yeah.
They're kind of like that one kind of English-speaking Western country that kind of is leading the way, even though they're tiny. They're really kind of pushing forward with like all of that.
And, it's beautiful because they're such a close neighbor. I think they have an impact on just like, the way that we talk about Scott Morrison side by side with Jacinda. And she may not be the best leader. We may not be able to rely on those people to save the world. But the comparison is night and day, just because one is actually, a good messenger and communicator, knows how to speak to the public and how to address issues at the core.
How good's that?
How good's what?
Yeah, that. Scott Morrison's classic line. I'm not even looking at it.
How good?
How good's that? Like
how good's that?
Yeah, that's all I know Scott Morrison for. It's like, oh, how good's that?
What about him shaking hands with people that he doesn't?
Didn't even want to take his hand. He sort of grabbed it.
But like, just such a strange bloke. Very deluded, strange bloke.
I think at the end of the day, there might be some people in the Liberal Party who have a deep belief in everything that they say, but for the most part, they're kind of hired actors. And I can see that, especially for someone like Scott Morrison, because he just feels like someone who's been
manufactured.
Yeah.
That ad, I think it was an ABC thing, or whoever did it. It's on YouTube. We watched it. Like the creation of ScoMo, like how they branded Scott Morrison, and it's like when you watch that, you're like, fuck, like you've just like taken that red pill. Like I now see you for what you are to the core. But anyway, classic Australian politics.
Yeah.
It's so far and away from what people experience. That's the fucking problem.
It's weird. We're literally like the US, where it kind of feels like nothing matters in terms of like which side's going
it's
on.
It's just postmodern garbage.
But then what gets even weirder though, in Australia, no one even gives a fuck. That's what adds to like it.
Yeah, like, I mean, the whole thing with the Prime Minister, I mean, the last couple of Prime Ministers, we didn't even vote them in. They just sort of were there. One minute we had Julia Gillard, and we had this. It's like, who's next? Like, how did they get in there?
How, like, trust and faith in these institutions has just eroded over time. And I think it's been happening for decades. Like, I actually wrote something about this tonight. I think it's something...
What are you publishing that on?
Medium.
Nice. Yeah, cool.
So, I think the thing about, like, the main problem that I have with like entering into kind of these discussions with people often is that like, how do you make it relate to what they care about? Because, you know, I think a lot of the reason why you have people in Canberra who can make unscrupulous, corrupt decisions is because there's a broader apathy that is encouraged. Like distraction is encouraged.
For sure. Definitely. Apathy. People without the knowledge and the willingness to go and find out and not wanting to take responsibility, that in itself.
Yeah. And I mean, there's, I think, a lot of reasons as to why that happens, because it's right in our faces and so on and so forth. But, you know, it'll be really cool if we could learn to, I think the internet is something that actually empowers us to at least have access to information. Definitely. And what we do with that information is up to us. But like, that could be a potential for us to kind of move out of this deadlock.
It's just strange. We have access to information, but there's so much sides to the information, right?
But I think that's a good thing, because at one point we were all like, oh yeah, there's just a truth and there's a false. Yeah. And we now believe and kind of know that there's so many different sides to the story, and objectivity isn't something that someone can just pull out of their fucking ass. And a lot of the time people are just making up as they go along. In fact, that's a pretty
100%.
common strategy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, politicians are constantly changing their words from one day to the next. Oh, yeah, it's no good for you. It's good. I mean, I don't want to use any names, but there have been politicians at 1 minute saying, we're not, no cannabis, it's a gateway drug. And the next thing, oh yeah, we're going to be encouraging Australians to be growing it and exporting it. Really? I heard you last week saying that there's no way that's going to be happening in the next thing. So they really, I don't see it happening as a top-down approach. I see it happening through the people.
Always, man.
It's always going to be through the people. It's going to be people that take it on board, willing to use it, do something with it,
global
create
movement.
something. Exactly. It really, it's a global movement. Getting some noise there.
Yeah, some interference.
It's a little bit of interference. Yeah, I see it's got to be through the people, you know, and...
Oath, man.
Yeah.
There's something about being able to bring it back down to that level, because, yeah, like you say, they don't have the ultimate power. If people rallied themselves, then they could make this happen. And people do make this happen, even when it's illegal. A bit like we were talking earlier. There's so many avenues for people to find their own way in this.
The most frustrating thing, I think, with cannabis is, you know, we want to rally together over the whole thing, but like we all feel like we'll be attacked as soon as we do.
Well, I went to a protest.
Which one?
Back in 2016, just when I started. It was for legalizing cannabis, medical cannabis, and it was at the front of Parliament House in Brisbane, and I turned up there all eager and ready to go. I even had hemp seeds that I was giving out to people. Don't eat them, just look at them, rub them on your face, you know, because back then you couldn't, you know. And I was really disappointed with the people that turned up. It was like maybe 100 people, and I knew that was like people all around us, white collar workers that were, and the people that were there were just, that were beautiful people, but they didn't represent the total population of people that actually do
For sure.
use and use it for a reason. There were a lot of white collar people up there that weren't willing to come down and actually stand
Right.
up and do it. They just
Because that would mean risking their job.
risking their
A lot of
job,
people
their
don't turn up to those
identity, and all those
protests
things.
because of that.
They don't, because they're afraid of what's going the incarceration, and that's the thing. We've been we've been criminalized, demonized, and this is the other thing too. Like politicians that have been saying no, 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 and been locking people up, they're now got to turn around and go, oh, we made a mistake. We've got to let those people out. Well, we should let those people out.
They're going to have to pardon them. And
And all the doctors have gone, oh no, it doesn't actually do anything. Those people have probably killed thousands of people just from restricting the access of giving them an opportunity to try it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that are going to have to eat their words. And
Did you see the report that came out? It was for the Queensland government. It was QPC, and basically they said we should decriminalise. This is a committee that the Queensland government has set up.
Yeah.
It's independent, but they come up with their own policy-based decisions, evidence-based. And ultimately what they said was just we should decriminalise all drugs because it's such a massive toll on our incarceration system here in Queensland. The non-violent drug offences are just, like a huge expense.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, there's all of these public health concerns and blah, 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 blah. So they came to the government with that. The government didn't even let the parliament hear that. They basically said, we're just going to move on to the next motion. And I think that shows that, there's such a deficit when it comes to relying upon those kinds of people for evidence-based leadership.
yeah.
It's not necessarily going to happen just because you want it to happen.
My blood is literally boiling, and I just want to punch
Anastasia Palaszczuk.
Yeah.
She could be a Disney princess. Jesus Christ.
I think she actually changed it from Palaszczuk to Palaszczuk because she lives in Queensland. She wants the Bovans to pronounce it.
Palaszczuk.
I'm not even kidding, because you look at the spelling of it, it's Palaszczuk. It is. And the traditional pronunciation is Palaszczuk. Everyone else who goes by Palaszczuk is Palaszczuk, but for her it's Palaszczuk because it's too difficult for Queenslanders. Palaszczuk.
The one that's really hard, quite honestly, is the one in New South Wales. How do you pronounce her name?
Gladys Berejiklian.
Berejiklian. It's just insane. I don't know. I think they've just picked
very Australian name.
Our premiers have been picked to be really
Gladys.
hard to pronounce, so you can never find them. You couldn't even call them out because you couldn't say
They're
their
obscure.
name. It'd just sound ridiculous.
That's funny.
But the whole thing with the protest that you were talking about, how you had 100 people turn out, I had the exact same thing happen. When was that? A year or two ago? I think it was a 420 sort of thing around that time, and it was outside
Same
Parliament,
dynamic.
and all you had was kind of the Liberal Democrats put it on mostly.
Yeah.
Good dudes, but weird dudes.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of political allies, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that might have contributed to it.
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing. So it showed me that there really is a need for what we're doing as far as the whole idea behind the global hemp movement is really to try and educate, inspire, and distribute all things hemp. That's part of our little motto. And the way that the way I sort of thought about doing that was, we don't. You can make 50,000 products. They've said you can make 50,000 products out of hemp, and these are everyday kind of products like soap and shampoo and creams, face creams, and food. So you can give a bar of soap to someone, and then go, oh wow, that's not the devil's lettuce. It's not going to kill me. It's not going to make me high. It's just going to
clean me.
It's just going to clean me, and it's made from a nice plant that it doesn't get sucked out of the oceans, not oil wells drilling or anything like that. It's just some soap, and it's made here in Australia by Australian people.
How do you
for
explain
Australian
that
people
to people who have never done it before? Do you put it on the labeling? Do you have that face-to-face kind of thing?
So we've been operating out of markets pretty much for the last 4 years, pretty much.
Right,
Yeah. Face-to-face, giving people samples here, have some seeds, eat them. And the amount of people that look at me and go, oh, no, I can't do that, or I don't want to go. Yeah, so it's basically just giving it to people and saying, hopefully they'll try it and have a go. Just try it, see what happens, wipe it on your face, see what,
How has COVID affected you guys in terms of no markets, or has market still continued?
Yeah, so the main market that we do up in Brisbane, that's still operated, but it pretty much the whole vibe there changed. So we sort of
Yeah.
we pulled back, and we haven't been there for about 6 or 7 weeks. But we are going back. We've had a few people asking us to come back, and so
Is that the Rona or
the Rona.
coronavirus?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that sort of impacted. We sort of
Did it let you kind of? I'm curious. Like, did it let you just regroup, kind of refocus?
To be honest,
recalibrate?
I was thinking, oh, this will be great, some isolation. I'll have some time off. We'll be able to
Yeah.
get a few things done. But it didn't really kind of work out that way. It was
Yeah.
really busy. It was good. So a lot, and we were lucky too. A lot of people that were coming to the markets came over to the website.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that
That's
was really
cool.
good. Yeah, and we're getting good feedback with some of the stuff that we're making now. So
That's awesome. Are you
Yeah,
guys making it
nice.
yourselves, or do you have a few factories? How's that?
yeah, so we make some of it ourselves. We have I have a factory down in northern New South Wales at the foothills of Mount Warning in Murwillumbah. Yeah.
Beautiful area,
Yeah,
sacred
it's a beautiful
area.
lady. We have a lady down there. She's been making like creams and potions for quite some time, and put a selection together of what we like. Hemp is the majority of it, and this could have came about because we were selling a product, the Hemp Foods Australia product, and we didn't realize at the time, but it looks like an Australian product. It's called Hemp Foods Australia. The name of the business is Hemp Foods Australia.
So you'd assume.
But when you turn around the back and you actually read a little logo that
Made in.
says, you know, how much of this,
Made in?
how much,
Oh, how
well,
much?
they've changed the labeling now. It's not like where is it made in, it's just how much of it's made in Australia. And the bar was like zero. Zero of it came from Australia. It was all from China. So
Right.
the seeds was from China. And look, I don't have anything against China, but I just believe that, you know, we're here in a country, it's a big country, we've got the ability to grow and manufacture, and it'd be good that we have Australian produce.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so when I found out that the product that we were selling was Chinese, even though it was called Hemp Foods Australia, we decided to find our own supply. So we've got Tasmanian seed, with the seeds pressed into oil, cold pressed into oil, and we get the protein powder from that. And
That's brilliant.
yeah, it's really good to have. And I think I believe you can taste it. We've done the Pepsi challenge a few times, and we've always come back with our seed being a creamier, nicer kernel. So we're happy with that.
How do you prepare a seed into?
So it's not an easy process. It's a very big machine, a hulling machine, to take that tiny little shell off that seed. And really, it's a process. It's not an efficient process, because if you take a ton of seed, you probably only get about 400 kilos of hulled seed. The rest is
Right.
all shell. It's about
Right.
anywhere from 600
And
to 700
in-
kilos of shell.
Rest of the world, though, you're allowed to eat whole seed, aren't you?
Well, we can get your whole seed, but it's got to be roasted. We can't
Okay.
sell a whole. I'd love to be able to like an alfalfa sprout, to be able
Yeah.
to just sprout hemp seeds and sell them in have them in a little packet off of that, because the
Have you
nutritional
seen,
value would be amazing.
I think it's in Europe. I think it was like in the Netherlands, in Aldi or Lidl, either one. They were selling hemp plants,
Oh my God.
like in the shelves, like basil.
That'd be so.
No way.
It's so cool.
Picking your own hemp plants, that would be
Yeah.
amazing. That would be just that's where it should be. That's the goal to get here to Australia. So
Yeah.
and I think to be honest, asking the question like how quick's it going to change here, I'd like to say it's going to change really soon, but I think there's still going to be a bit of education around it, and
For
I
sure.
think it's happening. It's
Reaching
going to
out.
happen quicker than we think,
it is.
but it's still going to be a bit of a process. I think, did we pick 2026?
Yeah, I put around 2025, 2026, because I think it'll
That's
take around
100
5 years,
Yeah.
5-6 years.
Yeah, and I thought it was 10 years when I started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would
That would line up.
that would put it in the ballpark.
When
so.
I kind of started with this, I went through like that whole entrepreneurial journey of like, who the fuck am I? Like, what am I?
100%, definitely.
Right? We all do that. And then you watch all those videos and they're like, and I watched one with an entrepreneur I really like, Patrick Bet David. Don't know if you've watched Valuetainment.
Oh yeah, I have.
Awesome
yeah,
dude.
Yeah,
Really,
awesome.
really
I've
cool
been
dude.
getting into him quite a bit lately. Yeah.
His content lately, he's awesome. I love that he's actually getting lefty kind of ideas on. It's
Alternative
like,
perspectives.
Yeah.
That's
wow,
good.
you're not a fucking
Hack.
Yeah, you're someone who's actually a genuine cunt.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I
shout
guess.
out aside, he had this whole thing. It's like, are you prepared to stick it out in this industry for 10, 20, 30 years? And I'm
Good
like,
point.
I sat there and I like really thought, it's like, do I want to be involved with cannabis for 10 years where there's a chance that I might not even make anything like substantial? Like it could just be me trying. And I mean, that's kind of what it has been. But
It is.
and I like really have to think about it. It's like it could literally be illegal for 10 years and like there would be no market, no nothing. And it's like I entered a bit later than you, but it's still the same kind of, it hasn't changed that much.
There are a lot of
No.
other industries that are less risky, but I think that this cannabis industry has such a high reward, not just for the entrepreneurs, but the social
Change
benefit.
For
Brings,
sure,
yeah.
definitely. And there was times in my life where I was questioning what I was doing. I've had a varied past. I've had different professions and I've got a few different skill sets. But I've kind of questioned, there's times in your life, am I supposed to be doing this? Or what am I supposed to be doing with my life? Or who am I?
Yeah.
I haven't asked that question in the last 4 years.
Nice.
I really haven't, because we've seen so many amazing things happen with...
You're on that path.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
just transformations. Just even in the short years that I've been involved, there's been other businesses that have started off, people making, hempalicious. Hempedelic. They make these amazing treats, and the guy I was telling you about with the making the beehives out of hempcrete and all
Oh,
these.
that's awesome.
Just people going out there and getting inspired and going, oh wow, if this plant can do this, what can I do with it? And that to me is just like, yeah. So I always see it as, I'm not a real good businessman. Making money it was always about just, if I could go out there and talk to people and they understand what hemp is, then I know my job is done. So if we can walk down the street and have a hemp seed and you can see it everywhere, well then it's like, well, there's nothing more for me to do. I don't have anything to do here. But when I started, it was really like I'm beating my head against the wall because no one understands this stuff's illegal, and it's amazing. Why are we not doing anything with it? And it's slowly getting to that point where, well, you guys are here and there's more people talking about it, and you can get it in the health food stores. Although the last couple I've been to, there hasn't been any hemp seeds. So,
Well, I mean, that's a really good thing for you.
yeah, well, exactly.
G'day,
If you need
mate.
something, get on the Global Hemp Movement website and grab some. So,
Just set them up with the wholesale and get them involved.
exactly. So, yeah,
Right.
we're actually talking with Flannery's and a few other places. At the moment.
Flannery's is all right.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
problem
so,
with those stores,
we have an article.
they're expensive.
We have an article
They are.
for
They
seeds.
are.
Are you on it?
What's that?
No.
Global Hemp Movement. Have we? We should
we
add you
haven't-
to
we
our
haven't.
article.
Yeah, we'll pop you in a few things.
Well, we left you some things to try. So try
Yeah.
them and see what you think first before
Okay.
you
Let's
start
put it
going,
up.
oh, these guys
Cheers.
are great.
Well, actually, we'll be living together, so it'll be even easier.
Yeah.
Shout out,
Good.
Fab headquarters is moving next week.
Oi!
We're about to work 24/7. Mitch, are you fucking ready?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
This is
didn't
either
agree
gonna
to
be-
this.
This is either going to be the greatest thing for you guys, or it's either going to be
It's gonna destroy us or make
just
us.
demise to you.
I
all.
actually
No,
think.
I don't think so.
I
think
actually
you're right.
think it'll be fucking sweet. There's something about being in the same space that gives projects an energy. Also, being able to leave into my own room is a big thing. Like,
Oh, for sure.
I'm holed up with my family right now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm still at my parents' house. So even if I'm entering into a new dynamic with new weird things, it's still going to be like a level up from where I was.
Definitely.
Where
Definitely.
Yeah, it's
Good
gonna
for you.
be.
That's
I'm
really
really
cool.
excited to see the creativity that's gonna come like out of like everyone around us, because we've got just brilliantly creative people around us. Like it's what we seem to attract.
For sure.
It's actually, speaking of attraction, one thing I was thinking, and we've been talking about for a while, and I think this is something you guys are going to definitely want to get involved with, is we've been looking to. It was before COVID, we did a picnic where it was just the Fab gang and stuff. It actually became a rainy day and we're doing a photo shoot. It was kind of a mess. It was last minute. We just needed to get some photos done.
Yeah.
But we wanted to make it a thing every month, every 2 months, where we go to a park, clean it up, put on a barbecue, talk cannabis. Like, there'd probably be a little bit of smoke, not something excessive, but kind of build it up as the community that's growing the entire thing.
For sure.
Bring it through and then make the community build out of that. So then when we do a protest, potentially that has already attracted a lot of people because there's a trust within all of us.
It's a bit like Abe, the cannabis museum guy, who at his university, he would just like have a day on Friday or something where he would smoke up in the university grounds, and that would be like, it would be a 420 friendly campus as a result.
Yeah,
It was
wow.
kind of a culture shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, can we do that? Could we potentially be handing out flyers and information, about hemp, about cannabis, about PGR, like to
Definitely.
the walkers by, have your stall.
For sure.
I really wanted to do like, your classic sausage sizzle, and that can all be proceeds that can go towards something of our cause and all of that sort of stuff. And who knows, maybe that will turn into its own little market. the Hemp Expo was so fucking cool. It's like, could we make like a mini Hemp Expo every couple months?
Kind of pop-up thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'd love to be involved with that for sure. And, you know, I mean, even the local markets that we found is a great venue for that, because people are a little bit more raw at the markets. They're a lot more real. If you create something or you give them something, they're not afraid to tell you right there and then, I don't like that. And you're like, oh, okay, we'll go and try and make it better for you.
Maybe it's worth considering the old markets.
When you were asking me about how I thought about starting Fab, part of the business idea that I actually had was to do a market stall to sell some like of this shirt designs and maybe some grinders and stuff. And then I started, when we did the Hemp Expo, how much we got in with Queensland Health. We didn't get into too much, but we weren't allowed to advertise some of our shirts because it promoted smoking.
Just spooked you a bit.
Like just these little restrictions that made it hard.
I was selling we had some books on our table from a guy who he's an Australian, but he had to go to America to write the book. It was all about how to grow. Beautiful book, beautiful pictures and all that, and how to clone and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, he wasn't allowed to sell that book in Australia. And he's like, come and give it. We do it under the counter.
Illegal?
No.
That's suppression of information.
And
Australia doesn't have a First Amendment.
Nothing like that. Yeah,
and there was another guy, Cog. He's down in.
I know Cog.
You know Cog?
Fucking love Cog.
He's a great guy. I met him in.
I've met him.
Where are they? It's at. Kyogle. Was it
Kyogle?
Yeah. I met him at the
Classic.
front of the post office, and he gave me like a box of his DVDs, and I'm like, I want to go and distribute these, man, and tell people about it. It was like right at the beginning. I was like, bought them all and wholesale. We did this deal, out in the street. It was so. And he told me that he had the FBI, the Australian AFP, come to his house and have a conversation about the material that he's created, and you know, the whole story of him getting done with $16 million worth of weed or whatever it was. And it was just a handful of seeds, because they classify each seed as $2,000 worth of pottle.
Jesus.
Yeah, and that was, he spent like...
That's what that
every
that
bag
picture-
would be fucking priceless.
I know, right? But that's yeah. Anyway, great guys. So yeah, we were distributing that stuff. But
We have an article about growing weed outdoors in Australia, but really all it is putting Cog's video in it and like a text write up.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like, listen to the expert. Like,
yeah, he shows you how to fully find a plot and what to
So
do.
many
And
lives
yeah, it's
changed by that video.
it's pretty cool.
When you were talking about like how you started getting like a little like involved with cannabis and like you started researching all the hemp and everything, I had that same experience while I was at university. So I was studying IT.
Yep.
And I am dead certain of this. I read more content, articles, like literature, like on cannabis than I ever did anything in my IT degree. All I was using my library pass for, like, you know, how you got access to your journals and stuff, was just reading cannabis articles. I literally just had like a folder on my computer called like cannabis articles. It was like thousands, and I just read through them, and I'm just like, yep. I'm justifying like my habit. Yep. Like,
and did you have the vision that you wanted to grow it and you wanted to do this?
Yeah,
with it and you
yeah,
wanted to-
yeah.
It's like you meet people, and when the hemp bug bites you or the cannabis bug bites you, it's like you want to do everything. I remember when I started, I was like, we want to have a farm, we want to make these, and we want to do this, and we want to grow that. And then slowly over time, you sort of find your niche in the
refine
cannabis.
that vision.
And I believe everybody's got a place in the cannabis world,
like
or
the
the hemp
growing
world.
thing, me and the boys were like, boys, we got to do this, and we're like planned out exactly how we never did it. Like,
Yeah, exactly,
Never did it,
yeah.
but like I watched more videos on growing than I did anything else. I reckon I'm an expert at this point when I've never even really done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, and it's just like, what? Like that's outlandish, but it's like how much time I put into looking at that.
Well, people ask me at the markets, like, do you grow this? And I'm like, no, well, it's grown in Tasmania. And for one, I'm not a farmer. Like, that's not what I do. I'm better at talking to people and explaining about what it is, how it works, and trying it and giving people first experiences of it and showing you that it's not something to be worried about. It's not going to hurt you. It's actually going to be good for you. And it's been on the planet for hundreds of thousands of years. We've developed a whole system to work with this plant, you know, like the whole endocannabinoid system. So, yeah, it's interesting when you come across that.
It's interesting once the passion hits, and
yeah, well, exactly. Yeah,
and you know, when they talk about finding your passion, like just for myself, it was like I just denied cannabis as the passion, right? Like I always loved weed. I always said it like da 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 da, but it was just like you kind of think because of the like how it's kind of bad, like societally and all that, how it's looked on, you kind of just dismiss it right off. You're like, it's just cannabis. Like I'm getting high, but like I like it, but like I can't commit myself to this.
No, well that's what the hemp side of things changed it for me, because the cannabis, smoking it, that was great, and obviously I was self-medicating for quite some time, not realizing it. But then when I realized you could do all these other things, and you know, the building of the houses is a big thing for me because I like to live in a nice house, and you know, I live in a townhouse, and you can hear the people next door because the walls are thin
Not
and
insulated.
It's not insulated. I've got to spend heaps of money on air conditioning, and I've got to spend heaps of money on heating. If I had have just built it out of hempcrete, that wouldn't be a situation. It wouldn't be a problem. You wouldn't hear the neighbors. They wouldn't hear us. And you know, it's just that to me is and it's such a simple thing. Like it's why can't we do this?
So many like things you just look at the world and you go, why do we do it that way? I
know,
can think of like 10 other ways to do it. You know,
Yeah.
like,
a lot more efficient. And
I think the thing I hate
beneficial.
from people the most is like, oh, well, we've always done it that way. Why would we change? Oh, man. Like, I
that's
don't
the reason right there because we've been doing it.
Good
and
point.
It's exactly.
That just like destroys my mind. Like when that happens, like wires in my head zzz, 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 and I'm just like, I don't compute. Like,
Yeah.
it's funny too because you're like really trying to figure out why they think the way they think.
Yeah.
And then it's like, that's almost inconceivable to you.
Yeah, it breaks me, man. It breaks me. Because for my mind, I have to think of everything like, where is that connection? How does that logic occur? I need the logic. Without it, my reality just shatters. Like,
doesn't
I'm like,
work.
what, how?
Yeah. Exactly.
I relate.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Well, we're about 45. I think this would probably
It's
be a
been a
good
good
point to wrap it
podcast.
up.
Yep.
Shout out your website. Anything
plug
else that you
yourself.
want? Plug yourself.
All right. So we're at the globalhempmovement.com.au. That's for all your hemp and hemp-related products. We have a building company, resoluteconstructionsolutions.com.
Sick.
So if you're interested in some hempcrete, some hemp
Not
building,
yet, but soon.
Yeah, eventually.
yes. And there's one other website, yes to hemp, to have a look at as well, yes2hemp.com.
Yes to Hemp.
There's
Okay.
some
good one.
yeah, you like that one?
Yeah, that's a
That's
good
all
one.
right. I think so. It sounds pretty good. Yes to hemp.
It's short and it's yes to. You're not doubling up letters anywhere.
No, and it's actually YES, the number 2.
Oh, even
HEMP.
shorter. Nice. Yeah,
So
cool.
it's a number thing.
I don't know, web guy. Just
Yeah, so that is pretty much what we're...
Instagram, Facebooks as well.
Instagram handle Global Hemp Movement at Global Hemp Movement.
And just on the website, when they register, if they say friendly Aussie buds, then they'll be approved.
Exactly. So when you register for the Yes to Hemp website, if you put in there, how did you find out about this website? Friendly Aussie buds. Then we'll know how you found it. And we're just keeping our little community of people that are interested in hemp and hemp-related information.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Go check it out, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Thanks for having us, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. See ya.
Stay safe.